Hi, I'm Andrea Skitch. I'm a registered social worker in private practice in Toronto, Canada. And my main two tools would be EMDR and IFS. And my specialty is helping people heal trauma and dissociation, and also somatic conditions, including autoimmune issues and chronic fatigue. So, I wanted to share with you a little bit about navigating the holidays and grief. So, holidays can be a difficult time for many people because our attention becomes focused on the rituals and traditions of our families. And during that, we're reminded, of course, of our relationships with others. Many of my clients have experienced complex trauma, which is the chronic lack of having your needs met in childhood. So, for example, not feeling safe, not feeling protected, feeling loved, feeling seen and heard, or having the guidance that we need. So, for many people, when a caregiver dies or a parent, whether they're a child or an adult, often their grief is also complex, meaning that the emotions a person has may not match the sort of typical grief process, if there is a typical. They may feel more angry or more sad or even numb. They may feel confused by their reaction or ashamed that they don't have a sort of typical grief reaction in this case, especially when we live in a society that just assumes that grief is linear and is about being sad about something and getting over it, which of course that's not what it is like, or that's not how it goes. So, understandably, in many cases, people will use familiar coping mechanisms to deal with these disturbing feelings that are coming up, complex feelings that are coming up, and often familiar things that they know, like substances or food or distraction, even conflict with their partner, isolating themselves, or any other number of ways to self soothe when this complex grief is present. For some who have autoimmune issues or other somatic experiences, they can often find as well that their symptoms or flare ups become worse, and that can be also distressing on another level. The main issue with all of this, of course, is that the grief process can become stuck. And when we have a trauma response or complex grief, it does require a certain amount of attention and support to move through that. So if you are experiencing that, then just know that it's not uncommon, and there are things that you can do to move through this process and not feel so stuck. So that leads me to the solution part of this talk. Um, so for anybody who's lost a caregiver or a parent, I suggest taking time and first making space for the grief of your inner child, who may not have been able to receive some of those, the nurturing or the protection that your inner child may have needed at that time in your life. Um, that's a complex thing to do, but let me give you a tip about how to do that. So I often suggest to my clients that if they're having intense emotions or experiences inside, and they can't quite place where they're coming from, or they're confusing or overwhelming, stop what you're doing, set aside 10 minutes, take a deep breath, place your hands on your heart, and speak to your inner child. Speak to the part of you that is grieving without judging what it is they're grieving or why they're grieving. Our body will send us information and messaging about what requires our love and attention for healing. And so, even if you've had a loved one who's passed recently, or a loved one or a parent who's passed 20 years ago, there's always an opportunity for that sort of process of redemption around healing and releasing any of the grief that goes along with trauma and complex trauma. So focus on your inner child first. That would be my tip. So have faith in your own body, in its messaging. Have faith that the inner child in you loves you and wants your attention, and that that's a relationship that can be healed and formed. And yeah, just know that you can find peace in that process with yourself. And Yeah, I wish you a wonderful holiday season, one with so much support and love and forgiveness and healing. So, sending you so much love.